Hey, everybody, it's CJ Graham, Jason Voorhees. That's right, Friday the 13th, Part 6. And you're listening to thescenesnobs.com.
You know, I started this evening saying to myself, Mick, when was the last time you hosted a show by yourself? And it's got to be close to 8 months now. And I was a little nervous, not going to lie. I hadn't hosted one in so long. I didn't even look at the camera there. I was looking at my computer. It's so weird. It's a weird feeling. But then I had a savior step in. Last second, pop right on. And that's Mr. Casey. Plop.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Welcome back.
How you doing, brother?
I'm very happy that you popped on because I'm literally thinking, I haven't hosted a show by myself in over 6 months. And I don't know what to do anymore. I pulled up all these websites of what am I going to talk about?
Yeah, sorry about that, man. Didn't mean to scare you. It was a heck of a trip getting in. As soon as I got in, just got hammered with stuff at work, and it was like, what time is it?
I appreciate it so much. You have no idea.
Of course, man. This is the BTB day. This is where we all just hang out and shoot the shit. It's delightful.
Yeah. Anybody can stop by the video store. You never know. So, but they have to let me know so I can give them the link. But, whatever. Unfortunately, Len and Gerard did reach out. Neither could make it tonight, which fully understands.
Absolutely. We love you guys. Hope everything's well.
Yes, please. So, I wanted to get into it. I'm so glad. I'm still riding the high of earlier because Case and I had the chance to be on a very great show, the Jimmy Star Show with Ron Russell.
Those guys are hilarious, man. That was so much fun, and just such kind, gracious guests and wonderful human beings. It was delightful. I could honestly sit around just listen to Ron tell stories. I kind of got stuck a few times where I'm like, wait, you want me to talk? Why? What the hell am I going to say? This guy's freaking got everything.
I've got nothing to say. It's like,
you're talking about Lauren McCall calling her Betty. I'm like, so I went to the store today. That was cool.
I didn't even do that. I did the dishes. And it's like, when he was telling the stories last night about Jane Russell, I'm like, yeah. I met William Zabka, which is great, and I love it, but it's not the same.
I mean, you met the real Karate Kid.
It's very true. I did meet the real Karate Kid. And I told him that, and he was so sweet, and he was very nice. And I was like, why were you the bad guy in the 80s? You seem so awesome.
It's always the really cool ones that wind up being incredible bad guys on screen.
I was thinking about that, actually. Do you remember the bad guy? So let's think about bad guys for a second. In the 70s, it seemed like they were gritty, and I'm only going back that far. I'm not going back too far.
Fair enough.
In the 70s, it seemed like they were gritty bad guys. It seemed like it began that way, like French Connection, things like that. Like they were a grittier type of bad guy doing criminal acts.
Well, the bad guy back then you wanted to see be a bad guy. You wanted to see them be the one who kicks a puppy or something along those lines. Very true.
And they were that for us. So think about that. So back in the early 70s, I'd say most of it was not supernatural bad guys in the early 70s. You had Exorcist, you had Omen, things like that. But at the same time, then you had Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you had Black Christmas, and
Halloween.
Halloween, I'll go, was on that precipice of, is he human? Is he supernatural? And that came later because the way I see it, the wave hit. Jaws changed that.
Okay.
Because when Jaws came out and became such a huge blockbuster, then you saw a wave of not so much supervillain, but like bigger than life villains. Darth Vader. Talking about Michael Myers and other things like that. And but for the most part, it seemed like the villains that we knew in the early 70s were just gritty people, like gritty bad guys.
I mean, like a Lee Marvin, somewhere along those lines, is the bad guy. They played that, and then they were twirling mustaches still.
Yeah, I think it was coming out of that. And I think they were even kind of changing it up a little more, so it wasn't so much the twirling mustaches, but yes, still the same. There was an imprint there.
We didn't have much of an anti-hero yet. I mean, we had a couple.
Oh, yeah.
There were definitely some from back in the day, but nothing really as hard hitting. And also, let's not forget Nazis. I mean, in the 70s, that whole time between the 40s up to the 70s, Nazis were easy. Man, that was simple. You can make anyone a Nazi or a communist.
I had a producer, I had a producing teacher in my producing class in college, and he said, he's like, the Nazis are the best villains because I never got my BRB invite. Oh, I thought you were doing an interview. I'll give it to you right now, buddy.
Yeah.
So, Nazis are the best villains because you can do anything to them and nobody feels bad. I mean, barring, the past 4 or 5 years where there are true Nazi assholes who live in this world and are like, oh, Nazis, I feel bad for them. But we don't feel bad for you because you guys are junk. Mm-hmm. That's how harsh. I'm sorry. I fuck Nazis, dude.
Hey, no, seriously. Look, man, the fucking Captain America punching Hitler is still always in my home. That is who I am in my core. It's what we were raised as. We don't accept fascists, communists. I know that's more of you with the Red Scare. You do hate your communists. I've always seen the communists as more or less the leaders are the misguided ones with the communists. I think the people have a great idea. And the people should have power. Unfortunately, it don't work that way. So,
yeah, you know what? I agree. I kind of really dug when they redid that punching Hitler, but it was Captain America today. The new movie Captain America punching that idiot who dressed up, a QAnon idiot who dressed up like a Viking. Yeah,
the shaman.
Hey, Chris Sales, what's up, buddy? We missed you. We love you. For me though, when it changed, really, and you started seeing villains in movies in the 80s, the villains started kind of going all over the place. But for the most part, they were like huge, like fancy villains. Like you got the Beverly Hills Cop, where they're art dealers basically, but at the same time they're running drugs, and it was always drugs because it was the 80s.
Always, that was the easiest one. It was the war on drugs, so you pimp it, like Lethal Weapon.
Oh yeah,
that was a good one. I mean, you had using the South Africans and apartheid, and putting that message across in Lethal Weapon 2. I think it was fantastic because you're still able to pull in. They were close to Nazis. They were referred to as the Aryans and all that. So it's
Yeah, you had an up-to-date Nazi, of course.
Right. Yep.
I will tell you, when it got to the 90s, it seemed to me, and all right, I'm not getting political, and I don't give a shit if people don't like what I say anyway. But it became like environmental bad guys. Like bad guys who were trying to destroy the environment in a weird way.
We also had a lot of terrorists. So eco-terrorists were the thing, that was almost post-Iran, and a lot of that went down that created the terrorist scare and like the idea that this terrorists are taking over and they could be most of the next villains. True Lies really pimped that hard. I go to that mainly for Jamie Lee Curtis, but there were there's good villains. And it was a lot of villains along the Bond villains. I think were a good litmus test for as things changed. As they moved and progressed, what they were after, what their goal was. And in some cases, you get a lot of people who are they were the misguided villains. Someone who was maybe at one point good, but then turned over time, whether it be for money, power, whatever their belief system were. And we've seen that, and that's really what's carried on.
Well, yeah, I mean, pre 9/11, we didn't have a mark on who a true bad guy was. So I think it was whatever the headlines had is kind of what made that was the villain you were getting. Mm-hmm. Like you said, like the war on drugs in the 80s, which we know is bullshit now, but back then was the big thing. Or the communists. Mm-hmm. Russia was the big villain. Mm-hmm. So I think that was like, because we didn't have a real grasp on it until post 9/11, when it was like, all right. And then even the villains became much darker at that point. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And it's just kind of hard to see who else is a villain. Like who, like as far as the villain change and growth, like nowadays, who would you say now are the main focus of villains? Who do we have today
do
that
you
you
really
can look
want
at?
to say that?
I want you to say it, buddy.
All right. White people. Legit. And I'm not saying all white people, and people are going to get mad at me saying this, but like, especially after last month, and I mean, 4 years kind of combined all the way up to what it was, because honestly, again, I don't care if you like me or hate me or I lose people over this, and if I lose people over this, I'm losing the right people. Donald Trump was the quintessential bad guy of everything he did was like, this is what the blueprint of a bad guy in a 90s movie does. And he's literally doing it.
The billionaire who doesn't give a crap is able to do what he wants, say what he wants, is surrounded by yes men, and then is supporting a lot of the people that we go, what? But these were the ones that we were cheering against in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
It's so, but and to get off him for a second, because I know I'm sure I'll piss some people off with that, but I don't care. It's what it built and what led up to last month's riots. So now when you look at it and you think terrorists, 20 years ago, you said terrorists, and a lot of people thought Middle Eastern looking people, because of 9/11. Mm-hmm. And, Bin Laden and such having led that. But now it's like, they look like me or you. And so many white people are mad at that. So many. And I'm just like.
I mean, why do you think Get Out worked so well? The idea, I mean, it's just that is more, I think, an exploratory consideration towards white privilege and, the value of human life, and kind of speaking to the volumes of what historically white people have put value on human life. I mean, the Dutch started it. The Dutch came up with this whole idea of, okay, we're going to trade humans and make a lot of money off of it. Then welcome to the slave trade. If anyone felt like they were better than anyone else, they felt the right to murder or enslave or to use and abuse. It is just pure and simple. So historically, a lot of white people generally have been the bad guys. You know what I'm saying? That's the way it's been. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to look like, we don't want to look at it. We don't want to see it. We don't want to know it to be real. That's just it's a fact. We're not sitting here saying anything super salacious. That's the direction of the way things have gone, because that's the reality of it.
But not just that, it's also, and again, it's not that I'm like, okay, bash all white people.
No, of course not.
I'm a white person, and I care about myself, and I care about who I am, but I care about other races too. There's a difference between being a racist.
Humans, we're all fucking humans.
My thing is, white people wrote history for so long that even though they were the bad guys, they could change it. And in movies, especially because it dominated scripts, and that's literally writing history for the past 100 years and saying, like, this is how it actually was. And it's like, no, it wasn't, but now at least we're starting to see things sort of change, especially in movies, which I'm loving, because you're getting a deeper look at what history actually was. Mm-hmm. There's so much coming out now, especially from people of color who are finally being have a voice in filmmaking. And we see more and more that it's actually making the villains in movies more interesting.
I agree. And as someone who looks through a lot of things, the eyes of history, being a fucking super huge history nerd that I am.
Yeah, that's you.
I mean, thank you. Reading the Winston Churchill's papers, or his book, rather, his life story. Hi, Mike. Mike Courtney's in.
What's up, buddy?
Reading Winston Churchill's histories, when he's discussing being in Algeria, the reason they had to put down the uprisings in India, it's all that. It's the same stuff they did that, we make fun of this. I make fun of the Spaniards for doing as conquistadors. They're literally going in there with giant crosses saying, we're doing this for Jesus. And they just massacre people, just slaughter people. Then we go all the way back to the frickin' Crusades for that, like who was really the villain there? Oh. Who's the one who went in and went, it's ours. We're just going to take it. And that makes us the winners. And we're good. We're good people because we got God on our side.
And
Like, I mean, they were being absolved of murder, rape, torture, all of these things that they would just say, you're fine. You can do it because God says it's okay. It's what?
It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's sad. But like I said, the turning point now, and that's why I love seeing, like I said, with the 70s, they were more human. Actually, the 70s was weird. 70s was kind of split down the middle. And I wouldn't even say it started with Jaws, because like I said, The Exorcist existed, and The Omen, and they were like the ones that were kind of poking the holes in we can be more than just these human villains.
Psycho
is great, but Psycho is more about mental health.
True. No, absolutely. But it was the nice guy next door, the nice guy who ran the motel. You know what I'm saying? If you just see that guy, if you just check in, Norman Bates is just a nice, normal, quiet guy. And I think, Ed Gein showed that. And we've got it throughout our history. I mean, for crying out loud, Jeffrey Dahmer. He was just a quiet, nice boy next door. Who else was the other big one? Ted Bundy. People loved Ted Bundy. He was charismatic.
I know where you're going with this, and you're going to make me want to punch the Night Stalker again.
But it's true, because that's who they were. And those who the true villains are. That's what we're getting more out of, seeing history through no longer just the books that were written by the winners, but by the actual things that happened. All of these things coming out, all of the stories that are coming out, all the accounts that have been out, but now we're paying attention to them. Now we're focusing on them. That's all it is. It's not like this stuff just suddenly appeared. It's been there, but nobody wanted to see it. Everyone was happy to have the veil over their eyes and just say, well, life is this, and that's it. Yeah. And I'm the good guy because I chose to be the good guy, because I look like Gary Cooper. I mean, we slaughtered the Native Americans. Slaughtered.
Yeah, we still don't even talk about that.
But we still don't talk about that. We still have cowboys versus Indians as a thing. It's not. It's some fucked up shit. But that's the reality of it. And it's okay that it's a reality, because no one's saying that, Mike, you did that. And I think that's a really big problem. When people bring up the idea of toxic masculinity, which, yes, is overused and a terrible statement because it's too blanket. I don't like using those. Yeah. I don't like a single coat for a house. It just doesn't work. And a lot of people are happy with that because they just want everything to be bite-sized, simple, and be done in a soundbite so they can take it, eat it, and go. And
well, if I could cut you off just for a second, not because I think you're wrong in any way, but I think that toxic masculinity was something that was needed because it needed to usher in, and it needed to make more people aware. Like me included, and all of us, I think, because there's so long, I don't even think we realized how toxic we were as men.
Yeah.
And I learn more and more every day, especially now that it's like, all right, well, I don't want to be that way. So but I know, have I done anything to hurt anybody? No, there's nothing I can think of. And I've gone back and I've talked to exes, I've talked to friends, things like that. And to be more aware, and they're like, yeah, well, you'd make jokes at parties. And you start realizing, you're like, oh, wow, I was part of the problem.
It's ingrained. Right. Exactly.
Would we ever ask that question if it wasn't put in the forefront?
And it all has to be. It all has to be put to the forefront. And I think it's so important because it's just a matter of, hey, what's a few tweaks? What's not making that joke? Is it going to kill you? What's trying to be a little more understanding? Is that going to be problematic? What's wrong with, hi, buddy, what's up, Jason?
What's up, cupcakes? Am I still allowed to talk to you guys? You guys were seen in front of 4.9 million people today. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. So, yeah.
Jason, I never, ever want to be that guy. I would rather always be able to talk to you, buddy.
Hey, we were pitching 3 geeks.
Thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate it, man.
100%.
Yeah, I actually felt bad about that because I was like, oh, crap, we were doing the show. And, you were there for 3 geeks. And I was like, well, who the hell else is, I just went blank on, they're like, yeah, anything else you want to promote? And, luckily, Mick, we've got the channel. So, rising tide brings up all ships. But I was just stuck. I was a little starstruck still after talking to Ethan Suppley out of freaking nowhere. Wasn't ready for that.
That was so cool.
It was rad.
Man.
Somebody who
I
is
called
not
my
a veteran.
daughter into the room. I said, "You remember that guy? He's from Boy Meets World, and they are interviewing him." Yeah, it's awesome, man.
And
congratulations. 4 million people saw you guys today.
Oh, gosh. There's a lot of people
that.
who need to talk to their therapist after that.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Well, they're happy to see you, of course. They see me, and they're freaking out. They're like, that guy? He's got a face for radio.
I watched the interview yesterday, and I saw it looked like Mick and you in the future.
Right? That's what we were saying. It was so weird.
Too. We will have that.
It's like you guys stole Bill and Ted's phone booth and went back in time just to interview yourselves.
Wait, he knows too much, Mick.
Oh my God. I'm gonna tell Jimmy and Ron you said that. Honestly, yeah, it did remind us. We worked. Oh my God, Mike Courtney, you're a man. Oh, you're so sweet. He put up a picture of him watching TV. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna show it to you guys. I'm gonna bring it as an overlay, and we can all see. We can all enjoy Mike Courtney's feet. That's right. I'm doing it, buddy. It's going on your TV.
Oh no!
If I drop, I'll be back. My wireless wrap thing in my computer has been crap.
I'm sorry, we can't accept that. That's you're not allowed to do that.
I had to escape the Riverdale dungeon that's downstairs and about to start in 10 minutes of a lot of teeny bopping screaming.
Oh my God, really? Well, yeah, you said she's really into it. I still haven't watched it. I got to sit down and watch it, man.
It's like an NSYNC concert down there whenever Riverdale's on.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love that?
Our dear friend Mike Courtney from the Showboys podcast.
Oh, it's awesome. Hi, Mike.
Jason wasn't on yet, but he's here in spirit. Yeah, it was so much fun. Oh, Chriselle says, having a 22-year-old daughter, I see things from a different perspective. I see toxic masculinity as an individual thing we do or say, but more of as a whole. Tiny little straws draw day in and day out to really get under the skin. You know what I will say about this? And we've been talking about Trump so much. We're a movie show, but whatever. He was in movies, so it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay, Mick. It's fan-fabulous. It's amazing.
Really excited with a huge opportunity.
I was in Home Alone 2. That little boy was lost in New York, and I told him how to get to the toy shop. So
the toy stop was in my hotel room.
Oh no, the golden showers were up there. Oh no, I was just saying it was all in the movie. It was a script. So anyway, toxic masculinity. We're getting to it, and like, you know, it is a very real thing, and especially back in the day, like I'm so glad to see that's going away, and people are becoming more aware, especially younger generations, and they're actually teaching us. And they're not teaching generations older than us. Like, come on, let's face facts. They don't want to learn anything. They want to storm Capitol buildings. At least our generation is kind of learning from those mistakes. I can appreciate that. But I remember when he was talking on the, like, listen, I've never walked up to a woman and just grabbed her, grabbed the vagina. I've never known that to be a way that's how that works.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's assault, but, call me old-fashioned.
But I will say this, when he was like, it's locker room talk. Like, I remember my wife, like, locker room talk, that's bullshit. And I was like, not really. I was like, there is a such thing as locker room talk. I was like I said, I'm not saying that grabbing a woman by the vagina is a good thing, but there is a such thing as locker room talk where guys get together and talk. And it made me realize more and more, talking to her and learning from other women I know. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of shitty. And as I get older, you just kind of don't want to.
Because you're creating more allowances. And that's what the term locker room talk does, is allow us to write it off and allows us to look past it and go, it's just a thing. So we brush off the things that are actually problematic, just in our daily speech, in the way we react to people and interact with people. And I've really broken all of this down here briefly over the last couple minutes. And I think it comes down to just being respectful and being kind to other people. You can't look at one person and say you're responsible for your sex, for the color, all the people who are the same color skin as you, or people who look like you. That's proven over throughout history to never fucking work. So
that's not true. We've all gotten together and we've chosen you. You're the one we're going to blame.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll take it. Bring it on.
And Jason's the other one we're going to.
Jason, we're in trouble, buddy. Got to link up and go to Canada. Nobody's angry in Canada.
No, they're all too frozen to be angry.
No, valid. Yeah.
Well, us in Ohio are also frozen right now.
Yeah. How are you guys doing?
Good. A lot of snow.
Yeah, we're getting some here. Good old fashioned ice storm.
All right, and it's supposed to snow tomorrow too, so that's just going to add to the wonder.
Yep.
Remember that old generation I was talking about? That's Brian Kaz from the Sports Nuts Podcast.
Hi, Brian.
Jokes are jokes. Doing it is different. I agree to an extent, but jokes should not be something where you're saying, "Yeah, sometimes you got to grab a one by the pussy." That's not a joke. That's boasting. A joke should be something that's funny. First of all, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, like they were getting in trouble for the cancel culture when they were saying things that were outlandish and didn't mesh with other, certain people, certain communities. But at the same time, like they weren't meant to be malicious. They weren't meant to be boasting. They weren't meant to. They were just meant with. And I love how they handled it, as in like, okay.
Breaking news, guys, and it's ironic that it's happening during this conversation, but Larry Flint just passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man, fought for free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And the free speech for Mark to say, hey, guys. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, damn, man, Larry Flint really helped shape my childhood.
Agreed. I wasn't talking about that. I'm saying a joke is not malicious. I know we're shaping you. We're teaching people who are watching the show how to shape a villain, so we're shaping you as the villain. No, Brian gets it. Brian's a comedian himself, so like I'm just messing with him. But
I think, but there is something to it where jokes are jokes, and if you are offensive in a joke, but the joke comes across as clearly it was a joke, people are going to be offended. That's one thing. If you are being offensive and trying to be funny, but it's not funny, you're just being offensive and hurting someone, there's a very wide gap there, but unfortunately it's a thin line to walk. So you have to be very mindful of that.
Like George Carlin said, anything can be funny, depends on the exaggeration.
You know what I think the biggest indicator of funny is too, and jokes people make, if the person telling you the joke, A, has to keep telling you it's a joke, and B, is getting angry after telling the joke, it's not a joke, you mean it. You're not a comedian, because no comedians get mad about a joke unless it's stolen from them. If they say it, they're not going to get mad if you didn't laugh. They're just going to, I bombed. And I wish Jeff was here because Jeff could actually elaborate on this more.
There is a fine line for comedians. Like Anthony Jeselnik is one of my favorite comedians of all time. But if me or Mick were to tell his jokes, it would not come across as funny.
It's very true. No, a lot of people, it's all delivery. Like you said, I mean, it depends on how it hits. And if you're saying it to be hurtful, rude, or mean, then it's not funny. But if you're saying a joke that is offensive, then that falls under a different category. So, I mean, but most things are offensive anyway. Anyone can be offended by anything because everyone's got an opinion and they're just like assholes. They all stink.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Because Brian brings up a good point. If you don't like jokes, comedians just leave. Don't do cancel culture. Does cancel culture truly exist? Now, people will quit Twitter if the situation goes on. But other than like the Me Too movement, which I'm not saying didn't go too far, but it needed to kind of go too far. And unfortunately, all right. So like the Louis C.K. Now that, I can't judge that because if it caused turmoil in somebody's life, it did. You can't measure the level of a woman's feelings in a situation and say, well, what did he do as bad as Harvey Weinstein? Well, for her, he did. Or for those women, he did. So,
and that very much gets
canceled.
I see what you're saying, and that really gets into kind of what we were bringing up earlier. With if you take it on a granular level, you're going to be able to get into the person's feelings. You're going to get into what that person is about, and maybe that person was offended. when you try to use that example to set the beach, you are wrong.
Yeah.
I've always felt that if you try to use one example and that's enough for you, that's generally a bit too much. That's a bridge too far, because now you are saying you're becoming prejudiced towards that as well.
See, cancel culture, I have mixed feelings about, because on one hand, yes, certain people need to just go away. But, then there's people like Johnny Depp or Andy Signore from Screen Junkies, where, he got canceled hard. And then it came out that the person accusing him wasn't telling the whole truth. And it just sucks, because once that is out there, there's no coming back from it. It doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent. Just like if you're charged for murder, you go on trial, you're found innocent because you are innocent, you're guilty in the public opinion. So I am not a fan of cancel culture. I just think that certain people need to go away.
I agree. I think cancel culture as the overall is too much. I think there are necessities within it that have taught us that, and we need to be aware of policing those limits. But that's also allowing ourselves to police ourselves, and humans generally aren't fucking good at that. So it's such a tightrope to walk. Hi, Facebook user.
Yes, our resident Facebook users here, our Florida man himself, Dave Chappelle has stated that he would fail in certain sets, and he would, and he understands that, and I think it really works out. Like his sort of comedy. Again, he never seems to come from a place of being malicious, and I think if your brand of comedy is malicious. Now, I'm not saying you can't have insult comics. Don Rickles was the man. He could insult anybody, but it was never malicious. It was just insulting, and in a funny way, because even Frank Sinatra, who hated anybody putting him down in any way, shape, or form, putting him in a bad light, loved Don Rickles. Like they got it. Like they got who he was. So. I think if comedy goes to a malicious point or point of anger, especially from the comedian, that's when you get,
Michael Richards is a good example of going too far with a quote unquote joke.
Yeah.
No, totally agreed. I mean, that's really one glaring option to put out there, because there are quite a few of a person who made a mistake and was taken too far because they happened to be hit by a tidal wave of a movement. And although I may agree with the purpose of the movement, things that happen within a movement, it's still people. It's still people as part of that. So, and especially when you have people who have been hurt, and some people take that and it becomes malice and they want to hurt others. And that is an unfortunate part of cancel culture, is a lot of people who have been hurt and then want their pain to be your pain. And that's a real slippery slope. Yeah.
Facebook user says cancel culture is real and goes up too far often. And he also says, however, we have said this often enough that cancel culture ruins other people's livelihoods that aren't included in the initial issue. Now, I will say this. I think the big thing about cancel culture right now is it's an active thing. It has been, we have seen results from cancel culture that before, especially in the entertainment industry, it is now shining light, like the Marilyn Manson thing right now. I have somebody I'm friendly with who I've known for a while now, and I'm going to have her as a guest on a show, not to talk about this, but to talk about her movie project. When she was 16, was assaulted by Marilyn Manson, and it's a big story. She's been talking about it for years, but it never really came to fruition until Evan Rachel Wood put out that statement, and then it started to be realized, and more people were talking about it. I think cancel culture is important right now. I'm not saying that cancel culture should always exist. We should find a happy medium where these things can come out. But the court of public opinion has a far wider reach with social media now. So I think cancel culture is just where we've gotten to. We're going to hold these people accountable for what they say. Now, far too often, people just saying something and probably shouldn't be held accountable for it. Like, I mean, Chris Pratt is getting dragged through the mud because of his religious views and things like that. I don't agree with him, but I don't think that he should be canceled.
Right. You can disagree with someone. That's fine. And I think that's a real big problem with having these extremes when they swing. When the pendulum swings, man, it always comes back in the middle. And that's usually when we're able to put a clear understanding of what the situation is after the dust is settled. But usually the dust settles because someone who didn't deserve it got hurt in that effect, as it were. But that does allow us to eventually come back to the middle.
I honestly, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I really think that cancel culture is done mostly by a younger crowd. And right now, the younger crowd, their voice, our justice system doesn't work. Our government is not led by younger voices because there's no term limits, which we need. There's so many things that work against young people. They're pissed off. They can't pay back their college loans. They can't do this. Nobody's helping them. So finally, they do have a voice, and they can cancel you. And I think that's what propelled it. And, I just think it's for right now until we can have something better or things can change, needs to exist.
It's sad that it took 30 years for Bill Cosby to get caught. And it only happened because a comedian came out. Like, these stories were known.
And they were widespread. It's not like we're talking. I've always had the rule, man. Look, one could be different stories because there's three sides to every story. You know what I'm saying? There's your story, their story, and the truth. So when you get stuck with 40 fucking counts, this is a thing. Where there's smoke, there's fire, people. Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Just because, I'm sorry, he was, yes, America's father for a long time and was a fantastic representation that African-American people did not have. And that he was such a pillar of that unfortunately tearing him down, a lot of people were tied emotionally to him as opposed to saying he's a fucking person. Yeah. He's a human being who happened to be a fucking scumbag. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, and listen, I'm not justifying anything he did, but for years he did do things not just for the African American race, but for like organizations and industries in a whole, that propelled people forward in a lot of thinking. And he was such a huge figure in doing that for so many. It's kind of like, do we tear down our gods? Like if, or do we sweep it under the rug so the message can still stay alive? He got away with it for so long, and so many women were hurt, and so many women he had to be at a point where nobody cared about him for it to happen. Because do you think Hannibal Buress making that joke 25 years ago would have stood?
No. He would have been canceled.
He wouldn't have been canceled by people. He would have been buried by Bill Cosby.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Because of the power. Once Bill Cosby lost all of that power, he can make that joke.
Well, it's the classic absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Well, Harvey Weinstein. Look at how long. He had so much power in this industry. They made jokes about this man doing what he did, hoping that people would catch on. Seth MacFarlane came straight out, not only made jokes, but basically called him out on it, and nobody batted an eye because he had the power. And it was until it got to a point where it was too much and he didn't have that much power anymore. Like he still had power, don't get me wrong, but the stars and the things like that they had a little more power now. They had more of a voice now because of the internet. It was like, all right, we're tearing him down. So it's crazy.
I don't know if you guys talked about Joss Whedon already. I would assume that's kind of what started this conversation.
No, not at all. We were talking about villains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were talking about just good old-fashioned movie villains.
So some stuff came out about Joss Whedon today from cast members of Buffy, which had me thinking this. I'm like, okay, so we've got 4 people now coming out saying this about this guy. So is this going to change the way I look at Buffy, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, or Firefly? And no, because I don't associate Joss Whedon with Buffy and Firefly anymore. I associate Nathan Fillion and Sarah Michelle Gellar and the feminist movement started with Buffy. I mean, that was a strong female character. And the Avengers movies, those are Marvel movies. I don't even think of them as Joss Whedon movies. So
Agreed.
As far as that goes, I'm happy because there's some things that I have not been able to separate from the guy who did it, like Michael Jackson. I don't think I've listened to a Michael Jackson CD in like 2 years.
Yeah, and I'm with you.
I get the icks.
I've got a lot of things where it's difficult to separate the artist from their lives and who they were and the art. So you can't look at with music. It's much more difficult because they're essentially telling a part of them, or it's their performance. It's them. Yeah. Whereas when we're discussing something that's my favorite things, which everything in the Whedonverse is basically my favorite stuff. So Firefly and Buffy, right with you. Yeah. Those were parts of him. But the characters that were created were the people portraying those characters. So that never really is going to take away. I'm not going to suddenly stop watching Angel. I'm in the middle of a rewatch right now. And I mean, come on, it's David Boreanaz's show, and then in the end, in the last season, we get Spike in there. So it's James Marsters as well. It's never going to be, well, this was all Whedon. No, it might've been his brainchild. He definitely was heavily influenced in the storytelling of it. But the characters that came to life were because of the actors, the portrayers, the people who the Firefly is a family. By the time you get to episode 13, it's a family that you love and you're a part of. That's not because of Joss Whedon. That's because of the people, the characters, the actors portraying those characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And Scott Miner. I think he was a big part of those too.
Look at, I mean, he was the director of the first Avengers too. So, like, do we stop watching the first Avengers?
No, because again,
it was an entity before him and it was an entity after him.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to see the Spike Angel Odd Couple remake.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Oh my God, they just stay their same characters. Let them age up a little bit. They both get souls, and let's do it.
Let's see how far it goes.
How do y'all feel about the voicing of these people's creations? Do we still watch Weinstein movies or Cosby shows and albums? Cosby show. All right, here's where I stand on this. Listening to a Cosby album changes it because when somebody's a monster like that, you may have never heard it in their albums before, but you go back and listen, you're going to be like, yeah, things sort of changed for me there. You may not have seen it on the Cosby show when you watched it, but it's hard to go back and rewatch that. So I think when it's the person in the forefront who is creating the art, it's hard. No, I don't fault anybody if they go back and listen to it. I'm just saying it's hard for me to go do that.
I'm the same way because Cosby himself, that album, I mean, I grew up on that. I cut my comedic teeth just trying to do those jokes, that impression like that. I loved it. And as soon as everything came out about him and I really researched it and discovered how deep that went, I mean, 30 years of abuse of different random people, just hurting people, leaving a trail of bodies in your wake, essentially. No, I've got no love for that. It takes us back to that Whedon-esque thing or the Michael Jackson thing there, Jason. You're aware. I cannot stomach it because he is the pinnacle pillar point of it all.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's tough.
I also think, but when it comes to Weinstein didn't create any of those entities. I mean, he fostered them as a producer, but the art was created by filmmakers. And I think taking away from them that, and not refusing to be, refusing to watch anything that Weinstein's name is on, you're taking away from the filmmaker itself.
What's interesting is to go back and watch Scream 3 with 2020 eyes. It's almost like Wes Craven was telling everybody, like, this is what's going on. You guys should take notice of this because it is eerily similar to it's ironic that it's a Weinstein movie and it seems like he's, outing Weinstein in that movie. But it's got a whole new layer if you watch it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they really pointed it out, too. They pointed out the whole thing. And it's funny not funny. It's definitely not funny. But, it's funny in an irony way to see what filmmakers were truly trying to put out. And not just filming actors, things like that. But things they've said, the way they've acted, things that have come up in their movies, stuff like that. we're trying to let you know without losing our entire life. Because and that's why I think cancel culture is important in a way. And again, I'm not saying that it should be fully exist, but how many people were blackballed, canceled, thrown away because they spoke up and you never knew about it? Mira Sorvino lost her career. She was an A-list celebrity and she spoke out against Weinstein and lost everything. And her father was one of the biggest actors at the time, and she still lost everything. Blackballed from Hollywood. We see so many stars, or not even just stars, but like, you know, people in general who work in the industry who were blackballed for years. So no, I don't feel bad. Like, again, with like the Louis C.K. thing, like, he may not feel like he was pressuring those women or using his power, but how many of those women didn't make it because they said no? And he just didn't help them, you know? So, you know, I'm not saying it was, he had to help. But I have, like, for me, it became a point, you know, seeing this and knowing people who have had issues in the past and could not find work anymore and found it harder, that now we get to a point where it's like, those people are being canceled. It's like, this is what you've been doing, and now you're just getting it too.
I got another cancel culture gone wrong. So Cody from Step by Step, Sasha Mitchell, was accused of beating his wife. He got fired from the Kickboxer franchise and fired from Step by Step. It was later realized that his wife was on drugs and made the whole thing up. He's now got custody of his kids, but his career's gone.
Yep.
And
It's very,
a lot of
very
people,
sad.
if you mention Cody from Step by Step, they still think he did that.
Yeah, I know. And I've been telling people for years, because I have had conversations where, like, I'm like, yeah, and I wish Sasha Mitchell could have kept going, because he was doing a good job with stuff. And yeah, people were just like, did he beat his wife? And I'm like, no. Like,
He came back for the final season of Step by Step, but it was too little too late.
Yeah, once you have that stigma on you, and I mean, you get people who just like, they take it all away. I'm gonna send Frank his Mutant Fam, and he has to join in. We're wrapping up, but yeah, I sent him the link, so join in, Frank. Yeah, Brian says cancel culture is fine if deserved. If it's one joke that 80% get as a joke, those 20% shouldn't decide. That's fair, but I mean, who are you referring to, where it's 80% get it and 20% don't? Like, I get the Dave Chappelle's, I get the Bill Burr, but they weren't canceled.
And that's the other problem, is that turns into another situation, to your point, Brian, is it becomes more of that using one coat to cover a house. You're just accepting this one answer, saying 80%. Well, like Mick said, what's 80%? You know, like 80% of ants like ant jokes, but 20% don't. I don't get it. You can't insult people and think that it's going to be okay.
Well, I'm gonna bring on Frank real quick, because Frank is my Mutant Fan bro, and he's also the co-host of our new horror podcast that's coming out soon. Frank, what's up, buddy?
Frank, what's up, man?
Nothing much. I was listening to the convo. How's it going, guys? Nice to meet the both of you.
Buddy? Casey, Jason, this is Frank.
I'm sorry to be on my phone right now. I was just walking around. I'd usually be on my computer. But I was listening to the convo, and I'm sitting there in chat, and I'm like typing away, and I'm like, just send me a link. Just send me a link.
Dude,
so much to say.
Yeah,
Fire away, man. The floor is yours.
I missed the last couple. I feel like so I didn't hear the last 2 minutes of combo. So I feel like I'm hopping in, not having heard. I'd like to allow you guys to continue on, and I'll naturally contribute.
Okay.
So thank you for inviting me.
Of course, brother. You know you're welcome.
The video store, man. We just popped in.
Chris Sale says currently happening in Depp, I believe. Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of people, like, he got fired, and Amber Heard didn't. Well, she did after a while, but like, it took a while for her to get to a point where she was ticked off Aquaman, and all of the evidence was against her being the abuser.
Well, and that's one of those situations where we get back to the whole masculinity thing. Most of us, if any man has ever come out as being abused, you get laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's still that stigma. Stigmas are sons of bitches because they exist everywhere, and we still judge most of our socio-idealistic beliefs upon those.
It's so funny. I don't want to say I've been in an abusive relationship, but I've been in a toxic relationship where it's like mutually abusive in different ways. And one of my buddies recently came out telling me he felt like he had been abused in a relationship, and is currently being.
Kylie,
and
you need to calm down.
and
I am live.
And to your point, even having experienced bad stuff in my own past, I almost scoffed at my own buddy, like, get out of here. Even though I think that we should like take seriously claims from every side of abuse, whether it's women, men, children, old people, black people, white people. I even myself scoffed at it, because as a man claiming that you're being abused, you're like, just get the walk away then. What are you doing? Like,
yeah. I mean, I agree. And that's the thing. I think that's where it's coming, though, to a point of, like, we were talking about cancel culture and such. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a necessity right now, because for far too long, people have been getting away with things. And again, like, the people who are coming out saying I was abused were getting blackballed or thrown away, especially in the industry. We need to look at every type of abuse. You know, we need to look into it. We can't just turn our backs to it anymore, because it's going to hurt people.
Yeah,
you know?
And a big problem with that is almost like with the goalposts of justice, more or less, keep being moved back and forth. When we no longer have this is the problem, this is the line. When that line's able to be moved because different people, different areas, yeah, there's acceptances and allowances. I mean, that's living in those gray areas is dangerous. And yet also it's almost just as dangerous as trying to live in the extremes, in the absolutes. You know, only a Sith deals in absolutes. So you have to be wary of those, because you can wind up sweeping away a lot of innocence unnecessarily.
I want to defend the stand-up comedians, because there's a line, because comedians need to be able to go out and practice their jokes and practice their timing. So some jokes might come across as mean, but because they haven't developed the timing for the joke or so forth. Like, I'm sure if we went out and saw Daniel Tosh live for doing, a joke for the first time, it might not be as polished as it would be forward. So, I mean, there is a line with comedians that's very thin, but I mean, they got to have some leeway with what they're doing. But I agree. Like, if they're going out every day and telling the offensive joke the same way every time, then yeah.
If it becomes hurtful, it is hurtful. It's really simple.
Right. Now, I only heard part of your conversation. I imagine this started with Josh Whedon.
Actually, it started with villains through the years.
But you guys have talked about Josh Whedon, right? Like, that's
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And I didn't hear that. I literally just popped in just like maybe 5 minutes ago. And so that's where clearly, like, the biggest like part of the conversation is right now is like, what's going on with Josh Whedon? And me and some people in Discord were talking about it earlier. And just to put my opinion out there, because I know you probably all put yours out there, I feel like he's a big old asshole, the same way someone like Steve Jobs is a big old fucking asshole. And like, you would never get an iPhone or Buffy out of anyone else. And like, and for Christina Carpenter, right, that's her name, right?
Charisma.
Yeah. Charisma Carpenter. Like, I love her. I all respect. I believe. I think everything she has said is true.
I mean, I bought her Playboy.
but
who didn't?
But even with everything she said having been true, I'm like, well, it sounds like she had a really shitty boss. I've also had shitty bosses in the past. Yeah. So what are we gonna like? What are we gonna cancel them on Twitter? Like, I'm sorry that you had a shitty boss. Like, he didn't. And so when I popped in, you guys were talking about Harvey Weinstein. He didn't pull his dick out in the middle of a hotel room. He didn't rape anyone. He didn't sexually harass anyone. He said something about her gaining weight when she was pregnant. Like, he called her fat. That's like douchey, but it's not cancel-y. It's not like I'm gonna hate Buffy. It's not like I'm gonna like not watch Firefly. Like, I will watch whatever he releases next, and I will support it, and I'll make it $1 billion movie, because like, I just can't cancel people over them being a dick.
Well,
like,
Michelle Trachtenberg came out after Charisma Carpenter, and so did Amber Benson, and they hinted at more sexual things.
And these are the things I need to learn, and I am willing to allow those things to sway
And
my
Michelle
opinion.
Trachtenberg was 15 at the time,
That's
so
correct.
her allegations are pretty serious. But no, I agree. Like I was telling them, the ensembles of Buffy and Angel and Firefly, that's what makes the show for me. So if Joss Whedon turns out to be a creep, I still have those shows because it's beyond him at this point.
And that's a really good way of putting it. And I like Sarah Michelle, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
But I like Sarah Michelle Gellar's statement in that I will never want to distance myself from the character of Buffy Summers, but I do not want to be attached to Joss Whedon going forward. I don't know if you saw that statement, but it makes perfect sense. I made a statement to someone earlier. They were trying to say that Stan Lee was like a perv to his nurses right towards the end of his life. And I was like, he's a fucking 95-year-old man. Like, he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Even if I were to have found out that Stan Lee was a perv, I cannot hate Spider-Man. Spider-Man was written for 10 years by Dan Slott for the last 10 years. Like, it was written by tons of people besides Stan Lee. And similar to Buffy, we have people writing Buffy comics now. You can't just cancel a character.
Because the characters actually transcend the creator.
Yeah. Taking and we said that we actually talked about that earlier, where it's like we're not going to take away from the art, like we're not going to take away the characters, we're not going to take away the what was created from it. But like to go back real quick, there's a pattern with Joss Whedon that's showing that he has been a dick. So I understand the dick boss mentality, but now that it's coming out more and more, and that these voices can be heard after years of him having power. And we, Ray Fisher is the one that Ray Fisher, we should, so that's one we should be thanking, because he was the first one that had the power to turn around and say, yeah, no, fuck this guy. And he got screwed. Mm-hmm. That poor guy got screwed out of his job. So for me, it's because you had a pattern of abusive power. We do need to take these guys down, because it needs to be shown to all of these guys, kind of like Wall Street getting their ass shown to them by Reddit.
But so I'm sorry. Do we have to take them down? Or like Dan Harmon was a toxic asshole on the set of Community. Do we have to take him down, or do we have to show him what he did wrong and hope that he improves himself on a future set?
That would be ideal. And unfortunately, our justice prison system, prime example, have shown that something that's supposed to rehabilitate is just meant to keep you locked in and to keep you down. So it becomes, once again, this point of power and presence. Like, we have to start rewriting these rules. We have to start understanding what the rules are, what the purpose is.
We have to shape the rules based off of what we can do now.
Correct.
Yes, people should go to learn. Like James Gunn, he told some stupid jokes on Twitter in the early 2000s and apologized for them.
Which he didn't have to. That
Disney
was his
still
early
canceled him.
Career.
Mm-hmm.
And then Disney brought him back, which is great. But this all started with Joss Whedon today because of Ray Fisher getting fired and Warner Brothers more or less covering up whatever happened on Justice League. Yeah. So
that's why more and more people are coming out to say, like, listen, he is like this, and this poor guy has lost his job and getting fired over it. And that's what I mean by now, it was Dan Harmon, and I've seen the Dan Harmon documentary, and I've read the stories and stuff. Dan Harmon was an asshole. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's bad to be an asshole. Some people are just assholes. If you're abusive and you have years and years of being abusive on set, where it makes people psychologically question themselves and question their lives and things like that, and they lose their jobs over it, then you're power trip. And that's, for me, it's like, I don't think you should take away the entities that he has created, but they should always remain. Like you said, comic books should still exist, things like that. But like, you got to take the man who has now become too much of a problem out of the equation. And I'm not saying he can never come back. He can't ever come back. I'm just saying, for now, you're on a power trip. You've been abusive. You got to go.
I think the thing that's most concerning to a lot of people is that Warner Brothers literally swept it up under the rug.
Yeah, and I think
it's more about them right now than Joss Whedon.
Agreed.
And we got a lot of comments here. Frank, he pulled his dick out. I don't know. Brian says, wow.
You put him in the mashed potatoes, Frank.
It was me. It's happening right now.
Chris says, I think, oh, man. Oh, we got to we're going long tonight. I think it was Hofstaff said, Some go to these comedy shows and laugh at offensive jokes all night, but get mad when they say something that offends you. You want canceled. That should comedians. I got a soft spot for comedians, honestly.
Me too. Like I said, my favorite comedians are Daniel Tosh, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, and Anthony Jeselnik. So
because
I'm all over the controversial reel. Right?
You must be excited for
me are never about malicious intent. Now, I'm not saying no comedian has ever been a malicious intent, but for the most part, comedy is not supposed to be malicious intent. My podcast producer has sexually assaulted me. I did not. Those allegations are untrue. I'm in Virginia. You're in New Jersey. I don't want to hear it.
sexual assault could happen over camera, bro.
Okay. Well, I have all
your eyes up.
I have all the recorded.
Well, that's like my face is an assault for everyone who's watching.
That's true. Let me read these because we have somebody sitting in the green room waiting, and I want to bring him on, considering he's a host. I agree with the Madman Facebook user. Well, of course, you're the Facebook user. You're the Florida man of our show. And I have to get back to Facebook users, one of his comments, because I do want to hear what everybody has to say. The person, man or woman that does that stuff, their art lives, but their legacy should die. Yeah.
In some way, yes. I mean, once again, Brian, it kind of comes up with the Cosby issue. ONJ! What's up, buddy?
Good evening, gentlemen. I was listening in on a conversation, and I had a couple things that I wanted to kind of throw out.
What, the four white men are talking about?
About women.
I'm going to bring up some other white men, so it's all good. But I was thinking about something you were saying about when a producer or a director traumatizes an actor. And I started thinking about Stanley Kubrick and
Shelley Duvall.
But also Alfred Hitchcock and how they traumatized their actresses on set. Like, to the point that they had mental breakdowns or their careers ended altogether because they were dicks. They may not have sexually assaulted them or did anything of a perverse nature, but the mentality of being a dick drastically changed these women's lives for being actresses. So there's a fine line of being a dick and then just being an asshole. Like,
I think I don't mean to cut you off, but I think speaking as a white man, white men have the privilege.
Wait! You don't represent me, bro. You don't represent me.
I'll put you all in the green room and speak for you right now. Speaking from the view of a white man, I don't know what it's like to be black. I'm a man, so I don't know what it's like to be a woman, and I don't understand how it feels to be on the receiving end of these things. Yes, do I know how it feels to be on the receiving end of sexual assault or abuse or even racism? Yes, I do, but not to the level that an entire society has been acting against you. They've been on my side since it's began. So I can't really speak to that. So when people come out and say like this is wrong, this is toxic, this is terrible, I want to shut up and be like, well, tell me how.
Tell me why it is and what we can do to help fix it. Yeah, I hear that.
That's the biggest thing. Not enough people trying to fix it.
Yeah.
Too many people are more focused and worried about let's persecute this person. Exactly. Rather than how do we fix the system? How do we create it to be more equal? How do we create it to listen to more people? How do we create it to actually punish the shitbirds who are responsible for putting harm and damage onto others? I think that's something that we don't do enough of.
But see, here's the thing, because once we get into cancel culture, we cancel their entire body of work. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, one of my favorite artists right now is T.I., Clifford Harris, and he's got a sexual assault allegation going on against him right now for something that somebody has accused him of. Now, this hasn't gone to trial, it hasn't gone to court, and he's only got one accuser in court trying to challenge him right now. But if this takes off any further, it's going to cancel his entire career. Now, does that negate the wonderful things he's done? Does that negate the fact that he's still a father, has children, and all these other things? It shouldn't, but it will, and it's going to cancel out his entire career for one allegation. And that's the same thing. And some of these people righteously deserve it for years of abuse on abuse. But that one allegation for the step-by-step guy, I forgot his name just that quick. Somebody help.
Sasha Mitchell.
Sasha Mitchell was a great martial artist when he went over to the Bloodsport. Was it Bloodsport? He did a bunch of movies with a kickboxer. With Van Damme, and I thought he did phenomenal in those, but because of that allegation, it killed the rest of his career. Why can't we separate the legal system? And Casey, you make a great point of this. Our justice system does not do a good enough job of actually persecuting these people for these acts, rather than just canceling out their entire career and just wiping out everybody's paycheck all at the same time. So it's an interesting dichotomy.
Yo, you just hit it on the head. Here's an example, and this isn't an example I support, but when Roseanne said her racist stuff, they canceled her show, and that wasn't her getting canceled. That was all of her co-stars losing their job.
Yeah, they took time while turning on her to save the show so everybody could keep their job.
And I haven't watched it. I haven't seen it since the 90s. I don't support any of that. But I felt it. I felt the whole idea of like, why are hundreds? Let's not even say the cast. Why are the people who are doing lights losing their job? Why are the people who are filming it losing their job? Why is everyone losing their job for one person at the top being a D-bag?
Yes. And that's my biggest problem with cancel culture. If you want to go after somebody for some bullshit that they said currently, by all means, take them out of the equation. Cancel them from future projects. But similar to Kevin Hart in the Oscars a couple years ago, for a joke that he made years ago, apologized for then, and then they wanted him to re-apologize for it now because you found it again? That's not fair.
It's absolutely not fair. And unfortunately, that's the problem with holding the court of public opinion, is people have emotions and opinions. And if they get enough of their friends to rally around them and say, this is fucking wrong, fuck you, we now have a platform to do that. And not just one, we've got like 9. So people can choose where to go, get their like-minded ideas together, and live in their little, vacuum.
Exactly.
And just be angry and upset at that, rather than just saying, "Oh, I disagree with that. I'm going to remove myself from that equation."
I'm gonna
allow the justice system to play out. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. I'm going to bring up a counterpoint to this because there is situations where cancel culture goes a little too far, or not even too. It goes too far in this. We know, and I'm going to call it straight out right now. We know this evil fucking publicist. I will not use his name because he does not deserve to have his name out there. But we know this evil fucking publicist that exists that tries to help podcasts. And the fact of the matter is, all he does is tries to steal from them. And because I didn't name his name, he can't say anything. All I'll say is he has a micro penis.
Seriously, I just got a text from a celebrity friend that I have saying, "Hey, this dude just told me you were anti-Semitic."
Yeah, and this is not the first time. When
Now,
when these podcasts come in, and I'm seeing it far too much with people that I care about who are good people. Jeff Dwoskin, who has a show on my channel and always will because I know he's not this. This guy has called him a racist and said, I've heard him use the N-word. So now he's trying to get these people canceled. He's trying to get Jason canceled by saying he's anti-Semitic to these celebrities. And all it is this crazy fucking publicist who's a piece of shit. Truly piece of shit now is using cancel culture to try and hurt people because this guy is a terrible human being who's not good at his job. He's a low-rent con man. And this perfectly falls into what we're doing here and what we're talking about. This is where cancel culture goes too far and it hurts people. You know, poor Jason over here now has to deal with a friend of his thinking he's anti-Semitic because one asshole said it. And he doesn't actually think it because Jason is not. All right. I have personal conversations with all of these people, and they would not be on my channel if anybody was of hate.
I have a Jewish guy regularly on my podcast that I've known since I was 13 years old.
And why would you not have someone that is of the hate nature on your channel? That is discriminatory. You should have everyone on your channel.
Oh, no. I keep the hate speech out, buddy.
That is the worst devil's advocate ever, Frank.
Well, but to challenge their beliefs.
Ooh.
I'm not saying they can't be on any channel.
Spread their hate, but to be like, why the fuck do you think that?
I'll
break them down.
I'll bring anybody on my show with just me and challenge them. I won't put anybody else through that.
That makes sense, yeah.
But they're not on my channel. They're not going to have shows on my channel. There's plenty of other channels that will accept them, and that's perfectly fine. But Gerard, Frank, and Casey have been working with me for a long time, and they know, like, I'm not going to surround myself around people who are hateful like that, and I don't want to hear it. And I needed to call this guy out because he's giving me a hard time too, and he's just a piece of shit.
Well, people try to manipulate, and that's the problem, man. When people have used manipulation and tactics as such, they don't stop. If they manage to gain any modicum of success and be able to get away with doing it, why would you stop? Weinstein, prime example. Cosby, prime example. All these men, or just any human being who was able to do all of those things and has able to get away with it, why would you fucking stop? What's your incentive to be a better person? You have none.
Exactly.
So, Jason, this is not going to hurt you in any way. You have too many people who have your back and know you.
Me off because now I'm afraid he's going to call Larry. I got a whole thing going with Larry.
Hey, Jason, don't worry about it, man. Because you know what the strongest ship in the fleet is?
Oh, God, you're an
friendship. That's right out of Mick's mouth, man. You never worry about it because enough people who know who you are, that's what matters.
You know what?
I drunk dialed this asshole.
Yes, it worked. I finally got it, Mick.
I drunk dialed this asshole once and said that over voicemail, and I'll never live it down.
I wish I still had that phone because I'd play it right now.
All right, since we're wrapping up, because I want to talk to you guys a little bit more, and Gerard just joins. We still have time, so it's not a big deal. Jeff's show doesn't start till 9:30. But let me go through these real quick. Chris Brown was convicted, and he isn't canceled. Because have you heard his music? I mean, God. Actually, I don't think I know.
Chris Brown is not as big as he used to be.
No, he really isn't.
His music is still out there, but he's not as big as he used to be.
Did you guys cover? Did you guys cover Marilyn Manson at all?
We did.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier.
Okay, I missed
that's
that.
a big deal. And I was kind of saddened by it, but once again, it becomes that the artist doesn't transcend the action.
Yes,
the art itself may in some scenarios, but the person is still a person.
Okay, yeah. Marilyn Manson was a glorified cover artist.
What? Oh yeah, I mean.
Okay.
Give a shit.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Okay, I can see your argument. I see it.
It's there.
All the songs she sang were sang better by other people.
I'm gonna rock out to Marilyn Manson for the rest of the year after this.
I still dug Marilyn Manson all the way up until The Beautiful Show.
That's where you stopped?
His last two albums, he the very most recent album is incredible. Like he's really brought it back. It's good. It's good music. It's fucking like he messed up between like 2007 and 2015, and then he brought it back again. And then I heard this accusation, and the first thing I said was like, "Yeah, no fucking shit."
I said the same thing. I was like, "Makes sense."
I was like, you think you're like, you didn't just tell me that like Hanson was abusing girls. You told me Marilyn Manson was like mean to his girlfriend and like sexually like made her do sexual favors to his friends and stuff. That's where I got lost. That's where I was like, uh-oh. Because I had a friend that did that to his girlfriend when we were younger, and I was friends with both of them, and he would make his girlfriend do sexual favors to get out of owing money for drugs. And that fucking killed me. I hurt so badly for her that when I heard about that for Manson, I was like, uh-oh. I was like, that is the breaking point for me. Like that is sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter if it was consensual because like he had some sort of like hold on her mentally, like that's too much for me. But I mean, goddamn, like I will always like his music. That is separating the artist from the art thing. He is a piece of shit. I'll never be able to defend him after that, though.
Yeah,
I will agree with Brian. though. Don't let the asshole, the micro penis asshole, is who he's talking about. Gets anyone. That's what this person wants attention, and I'm happy to give him attention on this channel because he is a piece of shit.
Dude, you're gonna have to DM me what you're talking about. I got no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I will definitely let you in, man.
I love you, Mick. Maybe we should pump the brakes on that subject and move on to something a little less salacious.
Yeah, well, we had a question from Facebook user earlier. How does everyone feel about Dustin Diamond's passing? I mean, sad. It's sad.
That was very sad. Yeah.
Well, I'm conflicted about this one because Dustin Diamond always came across as a slimy scumbag to me, and on The Apprentice, for how he had to do porn to get people to stop referencing him as Screech, like he always came across as a slime bag to me, and like.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still sad that he's dead.
Not to speak ill on the dead, but for everybody to come out and be like, oh, well, I got to go back and watch Saved by the Bell now. I'm like, wasn't he just canceled, like, right before he died?
I mean, then that becomes that issue of, okay, well, these are childhood actors. They went through an entirely different world that I will never fucking understand. Yeah. You know, I will never grasp what that kind of struggle is to deal with those kind of things, to be raised in that light. So I don't feel I have a leg to stand on and necessarily judge this person. I know I appreciated what he did. It was Screech, and I like that character, and I can leave it at that, and it sucks that another human being is passed.
I will say that, but the part that you actually brought up that was interesting is the trauma of childhood actors. Like, I was following a different piece of news where the Disney actress Sky Jackson is going through a legal battle for having a sex tape leaked, and she's only
what the fuck?
Yeah, Sky Jackson from
Bunked and Jesse.
Yeah, she's got a
12.
You all have daughters, so you know those shows.
Dude, terrifying, but like she apparently has a sex tape out because her ex-boyfriend or whatever leaked it, and I was like. One, well, he at the time was, at the time of the video, they're saying he was 15 years old while she was 17. Whatever. But at what point do we not pay attention to, like, there are laws that kind of protect you and her from putting out this stuff? Like, do we not pay attention? Like, and this goes back to that whole argument that Casey made earlier, where why aren't we prosecuting people the way we should? The legal system is not protecting people in the correct manners. And we have to now rely on social media and public opinion to cancel people accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And if people were doing their fucking jobs, we wouldn't have to do that. Cancel culture would not be where it is if the people who had this power that have been able to abuse were not handled when the allegations originally fucking came out.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it all comes down to, like what I was saying earlier about, like, we kind of need cancel culture right now. Not all the way. We need to kind of regulate it in a way. But there's nobody else. There's nobody else right now to stop this.
How long ago did the allegations about Jeffrey Epstein start coming out?
Oh, that's the thing. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. He should have been fucking nailed to the goddamn wall back when they had a case against him.
Forget about cancel culture. That's like end child, like human trafficking culture. But to your point, what ends up happening is that it becomes a rumor for so long that we kind of ignore it. And then instead of it becoming something that the cops and the police and the FBI and the feds handle, Twitter handles it. And like that doesn't actually solve the issue. It just like puts a Band-Aid on it. And 5 years from now, they'll come back. They'll be a phoenix rising. And it'll be like Mel Gibson coming back from yelling at a cop, calling him whatever Jewish names or whatever. people come back. They come back 5 years later. They come back 10 years later. They make their movie, and they're a star because they weren't arrested for their initial crimes.
Dennis Leary had that joke about the alcoholism, the rehab joke. Yeah, you can fuck up and do anything. Just go to rehab.
Yep.
And then when you come back, everyone's happy because, oh, you're healed now. Welcome back.
Amen, brother.
It's an unfortunate thing. And it's something that, you know, if the powers that be, whomever they may be, were willing to do their job and enforce the laws that are out there rather than sweep things under the rug, move things around. The problem is humans are the problem, man. Humans are still in charge of these rules, and hence they're allowed to decide what to prosecute and what to not, and to what varying degree.
Speak for yourself, motherfucker.
Two things that build on that. Mick, you brought this up earlier for how Reddit users are now taking over Wall Street, and I feel no sympathy for Wall Street executives right now. I am so sorry that the internet has found a loophole to make money the same way you do.
Bro.
Think about Jeffrey Epstein. These people have money and power, and they just get away with things, and they don't let the justice system work the way it should, because I have all this money, I have all this power, I can make everything happen in the midst of me getting this trial done. I don't understand it. Like, people commit clear and present crimes on camera now, and then nothing happens to these people. Like, that's the part that I do not understand anymore. How do you commit a documented crime that everybody knows about, everybody sees, and then, oh no, we're not going to take that to court. There's a legal loophole that says we can postpone this trial for 13 years, R. Kelly, and then just keep pushing this down the road like it never happened. Oh, now it's too far beyond litigation, so now we're just going to let it die. No, cancel culture needs to come all the way back, take every dime that you made in between that, and just let you rot in your own filth.
Donate it.
Yeah, but the problem is you donate something, you never know if it's going to the right place.
That's all true.
Which requires a lot more follow-up than people are willing to give because we're fucking lazy. Because we're lazy and we have a shorter
people that are actually getting shit done. I think things are changing. There's a wave coming, and cancel culture is a start. I'm not saying it's the ultimate remedy. And I don't want it to turn into, if anybody's seen the Orville episode, Frank, where'd you go?
Where's Franco?
Oh
my God, they got him.
I don't want to see it turn into that Orville episode where everybody just judged everybody on their phones, you know, or it was a Black Mirror episode too. But we need to have accountability start coming out more and more, and that's happening by the court of public opinion. And I want to see it go in a good way. I'd hate to see it just have to be this way in general, but until these politicians and these people in power are taken down, and let's face facts, these old motherfuckers that are in charge, these old motherfuckers with their old ideals are in charge. That it sucks. Like, we have no power because they don't let us have the power.
I mean, you have an entire group of people who basically just don't want to talk, so they strike things down rather than having a debate or conversation about it. They just say no. How the fuck does anything get done by someone just saying no?
Exactly.
So, that's bullshit, and that's why I think term limits are absolutely necessary so we can effectively get things done, whether it be 8 years or 6 years or whatever the hell it is. But we can't have 32-year sitting senators and wonder how the hell they make all this money. They came in with $200,000 to their name, and now they're leaving as multi-millionaires. And during their course, they may have voted yes on one fucking bill.
How do you even write the show notes for something like this? From Marilyn Manson to sitting senators. What are
These are all scumbags, and that's the way we like it.
No one goes untouched on this episode.
It's called the villain show. It's the villain show.
Yeah.
All of them are villains to their own level.
And let's continue it next week. You know what? I'm going to say, because we are getting close to Jeff's time, and I want to give him time to prep. And so I'm going to end it here. Anybody who wants to come back next week, you can continue the conversation on this, or just villains in general, because we're having a good conversation about that as well. I want to say fuck you to the guy that's talking shit about my friends. I want to
#champ.
#champ. Stefan has a micro penis.
This means micro penis. This is our signal for micro
The
penis.
knuckle. One knuckle shuffle. I thank you for Gerard jumping in, my host and my soulmate on this journey of BTB. Casey, thank you for joining in again. 3 fucking shows in a row, man. It's crazy.
Woo, crushing it, bro.
Frank, we're going to be doing the horror podcast soon. We'll let you get more details out for that.
What you don't know, because we've only talked horror, is I have opinions on everything.
Oh, dude, always. Well, then always
everything. So
just send me a
come on any
message.
show.
Nice.
Frank, it was really nice getting to meet you now face to face, man.
You as well, all of you. It was really good being on the show with all of you.
Jason, love your face. Thank you so much for showing up tonight. Welcome to
I'm
Video
just glad
Store.
I get to be in the presence of 2 celebrities.
Yeah, I know. Frank and Gerard are here.
Make sure everybody goes and checks out Mutant Valentine that's coming up this weekend. Horror movies all night, man. I love it. They're hosting it. I will be there on Twitter following along. So head over there. I'll be blasting that out as well. Jason, thank you for joining in. 3 Geeks Podcast. Check that out. This has been BTB. So next week we'll be back again. Everybody will get the link, and if you join in, maybe we'll talk some more together.
Be good to each other.
Good night, everybody. Wait. Yep. And that's our show, everybody. Thanks for listening. I am Mick Manhattan, the Scene Snob. We always appreciate you guys tuning in and commenting along and everything else. Go check out this show or any of our other shows on thescenesnobs.com. Thescenesnobs.com. We love you. You guys are awesome. And if you would like, follow and subscribe to our social media. That really helps us go a long way. And please spread the word. Tell your friends. Have them come in. We love feedback and everything else. So everybody, you have a great